very significant question that very few people have been prepared to ask. Do you think Meghan Markle was even open to something romantic with Piers Morgan? I mean, he is obviously a happily married man with Celia Walden, but why did she go to meet him for that date at the pub?
I think any relationship that Megan pursues is intended to be more than a friendship because she's trying to get something out of this relationship to help her. Of course, that's the intention. Why else meet with the man?
What if Meghan Markle wasn't just chasing fame, but deliberately hunting for the man who could catapult her into royalty, not Hollywood royalty, the real thing? Not just any partner either, but one with power, headlines, and a global spotlight. Because long before she crossed paths with Prince Harry, Meghan had already made a calculated pivot from small-time actress to determined social climber. Every move seemed designed to push her closer to influence, closer to status, closer to the crown itself. And that climb? Some say it may have started with none other than Piers Morgan.
Just all these relationships that Megan has had where she was seeking something to help her. These were not people that she fell in love with. It wasn't about a feeling. It was about the opportunity.
Now, let's talk about that infamous pub meeting. Piers Morgan has retold the story countless times. Meghan messages him, they meet for drinks, they click, he puts her in a cab, and the very next time her name surfaces, she's dating Prince Harry. But here's the question nobody really asks. Why did she reach out to him in the first place? And what exactly was she hoping to gain from that meeting? Because Piers wasn't just some casual media personality. At that time, he was a plugged-in power player, someone who could open doors, shape narratives, and get the right names talking.
Meghan Markle is so desperate to scrub the real woman with this absolute desire for international fame, was, before Harry, desperate to find a British man.
He was plugged in, well-known, and deeply connected across both the UK and US media circuits. If Meghan wanted a shortcut into British society, she couldn't have chosen a better chess piece. Was it a date? Probably not. But was it innocent? That's up for debate, because if you look at her history, and we're about to dive into it, Meghan's relationships often carried a clear pattern. She moved through social circles the way others scroll through LinkedIn, strategically, one high-profile connection at a time. And the signs of that climb? They were there long before Prince Harry ever entered the picture.
I mean, Dinah, to say she was being purposefully provocative with Craig Ferguson is an understatement.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, I mean, you look at how she was dressed and the whole try to paint a narrative of your life that is just not the truth. It's not realistic. And people want the truth to come out.
Her behavior in old interviews paints a pretty striking picture. Take the time she sat on Craig Ferguson's couch, giggling nonstop, leaning in with exaggerated flirtiness, dressed to command attention. The entire segment radiated trying way too hard energy with awkward pauses, overblown sexual tension, and body language that practically screamed, "Please notice me." It was uncomfortable to watch. Even Craig, a host who's no stranger to edgy or chaotic interviews, looked visibly thrown off his rhythm. And it wasn't a one-off. That same energy reappeared in her Larry King sit-down, this time beside her Suits co-star Patrick J. Adams. The pattern was hard to miss.
She looked so annoyed. And you know, when I look at that, Dan, I just think that is the true Meghan, because that's not her in her camera moment. So you think about who the true Meghan is in this moment. I can only imagine how she's doing the same thing to Harry in moments when they're together. She is, I'm sure, so annoyed, irritated by this man at this point that it's really starting to come out.
Meghan couldn't hide the irritation on her face while Patrick spoke. In that moment, she wasn't the center of attention, and it clearly showed. Then came the flirty one-liner, delivered with a grin that left both Larry and Patrick nervously reaching for their water glasses like the studio had suddenly turned into a sauna. The vibe was messy, awkward, and completely unfiltered. But what does that reveal? Meghan knew the game, and she was playing it in overdrive. And off camera, it was the same story. Her personal relationships moved with the same strategic rhythm, every step calculated to pull her closer to the next rung on the ladder.
This is not a woman who was a feminist, who was focused on philanthropy. This was a woman who was focused on finding a man.
Meghan didn't stumble into the British scene by chance. She chased it. She actively pursued it. Former friend Lizzie Cundy and journalist Katie Hine have both been clear about this. Meghan was openly searching for a British man. She told people she was ready to mingle, and her target wasn't Americans, it was Brits. And no, it wasn't because she suddenly loved tea and cricket. Meghan was strategic. She sent messages to plenty of names. Matt Cardle, the former X Factor winner, Max George from The Wanted, and even footballer Ashley Cole, despite his rocky reputation at the time.
She had her eyes on the prize, and the prize was a famous man, but interestingly, P. Dinah, because she's such an Anglophile, not an American famous man, but a British one.
She cast a wide net, and none of them were true A-listers, because the goal wasn't just romance. It was access, visibility, and headlines. She even had a brief fling with Canadian chef Corey Vitiello right before Harry entered the picture. The pattern couldn't be clearer. Meghan attached herself to rising stars or well-connected insiders, anyone who could pull her higher up the social food chain. And when something more powerful appeared, she moved on without hesitation. So let's circle back to that earlier question. Did Meghan really want something romantic with Piers Morgan? Or is the better question this: has Meghan ever approached a man without expecting something in return? Because Piers Morgan wasn't the only one left behind in Meghan's calculated climb, not by a long shot.
I think she always had her sights on getting into royalty. I mean, at one point, people were saying that William was the one she initially wanted.
Yes.
The list of people Meghan allegedly used and discarded is longer than most realize. Take Lizzie Cundy, for example, a well-known British TV personality. Meghan reportedly befriended her during the early stages of her UK infiltration. Lizzie welcomed her in, introduced her to influencers, and even tried setting her up with footballers. But once Meghan got what she wanted, she ghosted Lizzie like a bad Tinder date. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. That's not friendship, that's strategy. Another name that surfaces often is Millie McIntosh of Made in Chelsea fame. Meghan latched onto Millie when she needed someone with direct access to high society circles. But just like Lizzie, Millie was abruptly cut off the moment Meghan moved higher up the ladder.
The foundation of this marriage is not built on love. We just have to look at what her motives were before marriage to know that it's very superficial.
There's a clear pattern. Every time Meghan found someone who could elevate her, socially, professionally, or geographically, she played nice, absorbed the opportunity, and then walked away as if none of it had ever mattered. And then there's the split from Trevor Engelson, her first husband. That one speaks volumes. They had been together for years, long before she became Meghan Markle. But as soon as her career started showing promise, she mailed the man his wedding ring back. No explanation, no conversation, just done. It was brutal, the kind of exit move that screams, "I've outgrown you." And that's exactly what it was. Trevor wasn't going to help her climb any higher, so he was discarded. Cold. Calculated. Classic Meghan. And after that split, her entire trajectory shifted. It was the turning point, the moment her climb kicked into overdrive.
That is the underlining foundation of what Meghan has always wanted. And it points to what it is that the marriage is built on now. It's built on this superficial want of fame, wealth, and popularity.
She shifted her focus squarely to the UK, booking time in London, stacking up conveniently timed friendships, messaging Matt Cardle, flirting with Max George, meeting Piers Morgan, and all of it happened in a tight window. Meghan wasn't stumbling into these encounters, she was manufacturing them. This wasn't a rom-com tale of a girl finding love across the pond. It was a playbook, and she executed it with precision. Her interviews from this era make the contrast even sharper. The Meghan people recognize today. Serious, philanthropic, ultra-composed. That version didn't exist back then. Watch her sit with Craig Ferguson, and you'll see someone else entirely. Laughing too loud, shifting in her seat, overplaying every expression like she was auditioning for attention. And truthfully, she was.
It's not built on love and wanting to, really support this man. This is why I think Harry looks so miserable now, because he knows he doesn't have the support that he needs to thrive and to build these relationships and to be like this prince who is doing good work.
Even when the spotlight technically wasn't on her, Meghan couldn't help but perform. On Larry King, while Patrick J. Adams spoke, she looked visibly irritated, like his words were stealing what she saw as her moment. She wanted every second to belong to her. Her voice, her face, her image. Meghan has never shared space easily, and that's always been part of her drive. Control the narrative, center the attention, and curate the story. Which brings us to the real question: what kind of person rewrites their own life in real time? Because Meghan's version of herself today is carefully packaged around struggle, feminism, and charity.
Harry is living the life of someone that we know who is not living in a marriage that is built on love and commitment. And that's why his life is going downhill as we speak.
But that image doesn't line up with the woman who once gushed about red carpets, clung to celebrity circles, and moved like a heat-seeking missile toward British fame. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but when your past openly contradicts your present, and you erase the very people who helped you climb, it stops being ambition. It starts looking like manipulation. And what makes this even more striking is how it mirrors her current marriage. Because if Meghan leveraged relationships in the past for clout and exposure, who's to say Harry wasn't just the ultimate step in the plan? Royalty is the final boss level of fame, and Meghan played the game sharper than anyone saw coming. But here's the problem with building a castle on sand: it always starts to sink, and Harry, he looks miserable. This isn't just the press talking, you can see it yourself. In his posture, in those interviews where he tries to sound passionate but only comes across as lost. He's no longer the vibrant, cheeky prince the world adored. His old friends, most of them are gone. His family, distant. The image he once built through years of service, through hardship, through loyalty to the crown, it's been stripped away, slowly and methodically, all under the smiling shadow of Meghan Markle. And this isn't just about love soured or a marriage facing normal struggles. This is about motive. Because the deeper you look, the clearer it appears. Meghan didn't marry a man. She married a position, a brand, an opportunity. And now that the fairy tale has crumbled into isolation, tension, and relentless PR disasters, the cost of that climb is written all over Harry's face. The cracks are impossible to hide now, and whispers are turning into real talk. Meghan may be keeping her options open once again. And why wouldn't she? The signs are all too familiar. When the glow of a relationship fades, she moves. When the usefulness of a connection dries up, she walks. It happened with friends. It happened with her first husband. Why would Harry be the exception? What makes it sting even more is that Harry gave up everything. His home, his military titles, his royal identity, all of it, surrendered in the name of a love that many now suspect was one-sided from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Meghan has positioned herself as the face of a rebranded empire, an empire that borrows the glamour of royalty without carrying the burden of responsibility. And when that empire starts to wobble, you can bet she won't be the one sticking around to rebuild it. She'll pivot again. That's why so many people who once supported Meghan now find themselves questioning her. And it's not because she's American or because she married into the royal family. It's because over time, she's revealed a version of herself that feels more manufactured than real. From the over-sexualized charm of her old interviews to the ultra-polished victimhood of her recent public appearances, nothing feels authentic. It all feels staged, performed. And when people sense that, they start digging back. They revisit the stories of her ghosting friends. They rewatch the interviews and notice the eye rolls, the fakeness, the desperate attempts to control every interaction. That's when the realization lands. This was never a woman swept into a fairy tale. It was a woman carefully writing one for herself. It was someone crafting a fairy tale around herself, brick by brick, headline by headline. And that's the most unsettling part, because this isn't just about Meghan Markle. It's about how far someone will go when image is everything and relationships are nothing more than stepping stones. It's about the price of ambition when there's no anchor of loyalty or truth beneath it. And Harry, he's just the latest chapter in a story that may have been written long before that so-called blind date. Ask yourself this: if another door opened tomorrow, one with more power, more fame, more spotlight, would Meghan walk through it without hesitation? Her history suggests the answer is yes. And Harry, despite all his sacrifices, might end up as just another man who underestimated how far she was willing to go. Because when ambition is dressed as love, it doesn't nurture, it consumes. And when the consuming stops being useful, it moves on. That's the pattern. That's what we've seen again and again. And that's why no matter how many times the image gets rebranded, the truth always finds its way through the cracks. Meghan didn't stumble into royal life. She hunted it, she caught it, and she wore it like the crown she always wanted.